Thank you so much, Christine. Oh, um, and thank you for sharing your story. Incredible. Um,
Pleasure, Katie.
So now we're going to carry on with the question and answer part of the segment. So I would invite everybody that's out there to please enter into the chat any question you'd like to ask Christine. What a wonderful opportunity we have an expert like Christine to answer questions about mindfulness, meditation, and body scan. So whatever you'd like, please enter into the chat. And while we're waiting for those questions to arise, it was said that Benjamin Franklin said that many people died at 25, but they weren't buried until they were 75. And your story, your beautiful, honest discussion of what you went through with work, and then ultimately really finding what your passion was. So what advice would you give to our group about how do you find the pause in life? How do you move beyond those limiting beliefs? How do you find what your soul wants you to do?
Really, I think tonight, when we think about the power of the practice and the power of mindfulness and that sense of connecting, I really hope tonight would be a good way to introduce people to coming back to their whole selves and understanding that when we can bring our attention into the body, we start to just notice. We become more conscious, we become more present. And when we start to become more conscious and present in the body, we're actually able to become a lot more conscious and present to the thoughts that we start to tell ourselves. And the thinking mind, and how I was mentioning earlier, how we can just hop on that train of thought and it just doesn't stop all day. And so really that to me is the power of the practice. When we start to learn to interrupt our thoughts, to really start to find time to pause, whether it's just for that quick meditation like we did at the start tonight, or for a longer, deeper practice like in a body scan, I think that that's a beautiful way to start to connect to what's true for us in our true nature. Because when we start to clear away the scattered thoughts of the mind, it's the wisdom of the heart can start to speak again, and what might be true for us and what we might have with our thoughts and our judging mind overrode. So from speaking from my own experience.
Thank you. There's a question here. Do you run any meditation practices, Christine?
I actually right now, I have been teaching for the last probably 6 years a Monday night class that involves yoga and meditation. So I do both. I have a really mindful, slower practice. I start with meditation, then we do some yoga, and then I complete the class with a body scan, very similar to what we did tonight. And then in the spring, I'm actually planning on starting just more of like an 8-week series. So if you're interested, you can always find me. I'll just type it into the chat here.
I did that for you, Christine.
Thank you, Phil. My website, there's my contact information on there, and you can always reach out to me, and I'd be happy to share details with you when that launches.
So that's Christine Francoeur. So that's christinefrancoeur.com. And if anybody would like to connect with Christine and do some of her yoga and mindfulness and meditation, there's a wonderful opportunity to carry on your practice with that. So thank you. What was the name of the poem that you read and the author?
So the author is Donna Faulds, and it's spelled Faulds. And sadly, I'm sorry, I just typed a segment of the poem. So I don't actually have the name of it, but she has so many beautiful poems that I love to share in my class. I have it actually in my other book, but if you search Donna Falls, I'm sure you'll find it. If you maybe even search the first line, which was, trust the energy that courses through you.
Mm.
See
Maybe,
what.
maybe Katie could find that for us and post it in the chat if possible. Thanks, Katie. That would be great. And people were just commenting on just how relaxed they felt with your practice.
Mhm.
How long should you do mindfulness for each day, and how many times a week?
My suggestion is if you can find at least one time a day to practice mindfulness, that will serve you well. That we are actually, there's been studies that have indicated that if we can actually even do shorter periods every day, that we will get a greater benefit than just one long practice once a week. So if you can find even 5 minutes, at the beginning of your day, I recommend incorporating that time into what is already maybe a habit for you. If, for instance, in the morning, you come downstairs, you make your coffee, you make your tea. While that's brewing, set your watch, set your phone, 5 minutes, and just sit and just start. It just takes time to build that practice. And when you're new to the practice, I find incorporating it into where there's already a habit built can be really helpful. And, set a goal for yourself. It could be like, I'm going to try for every day this week and see how it goes. And just set the goal. And then maybe the next week and the next week. And it could be that feeling, well, I need to do it for every day. And it feels so long and daunting, and just, breaking it into smaller, more attainable chunks can often really start to build our habit and bring us success. So that's maybe the way to start.
So, we have meditation that's on the breath. We have what's called Vipassana or insight. And now we have body scan. So what would your advice be in terms of which one do I choose? Do I do all of them? Do I do one of them? What would you recommend to the group?
I would say to start anytime using an anchor, like you just mentioned, Phil, of the body is a great place to start. So using the body, feeling the sensations, just like we did, you can just go into the feet and the hands. Even the mouth is like a really great place to just start and put your focus there. So you can use the body and you can feel into temperature. You can feel into where I'm sitting in space. You can turn your practice into an anchor, opening up to the senses around you. So what do I hear? I've made a whole practice, 15 minutes of just listening for sounds as they arrive in my ears, because there's no control in that practice. It literally arrives and fades. And it's like almost teaching us to watch how sensations and emotions can arrive in our body and fade. So staying with that, building that attention and that focus on an anchor, like the body, great place to start. The senses, the breath. There's so much to look for in the breath. And I mean, if you attended Phil's talk, was that 2 times there or just last time, Phil? But there's so much that we can look at in the breath in terms of the rhythm of the breath. How fast am I breathing? You can count the length of the inhale, the length of the exhale. We can look to find an extension of the exhale to help us relax. There's so many great tools that we can use using the breath and the body as an anchor of our attention.
Right. Can you repeat all of those wishes that you bestowed on us at the end?
Yes, would love to. So this is a practice of itself. So the practice of loving kindness and metta is a practice that I taught. If you'd like to learn a little bit more about it, on our website, if you go to my second talk, the Intro to Mindfulness Part 2, I actually explain in that practice how to develop a loving kindness practice, which is these phrases. So I'll just repeat them for you. So if you want to write them down, it's a real practice that we can bring to ourselves. Often, when we first start a loving kindness practice, it can be so much easier to give those wishes to people that we love, to someone we care about. And then what I like to suggest is, if you can visualize a person, send those loving kindness thoughts, then come back and bring it to yourself and the person, visualize yourself and the person, and then release the person, and then just yourself, and just continue with the wishes. And it's just like a repeating. They become this sort of rhythmic mantra that we bring to open our heart. So for tonight, the ones that I shared with you were, may you be filled with loving kindness. May you be safe from inner and outer harm. May you know the joys of life. And may you find peace and ease. Yeah, loving kindness is a beautiful practice to open the heart. It's lovely.
Thank you. Wonderful. If you want to hear Christine's previous recordings and previous recordings from our presentations, everybody can go to our website, wtm.thebreathproject.org, and you can then access them all. Another compliment to you on our chat, saying how wonderful it was. And I'm just coming here. What a lovely meditation. What advice do you have for those that find it uncomfortable or unpleasant to focus on the body?
Mm-hmm. If it's difficult to focus on the body and it's uncomfortable, if there's an opportunity to even just focus on the breath, that can be helpful. Or like I was mentioning earlier, we can connect to our senses. We can make just that practice of listening, of just listening to the sounds arise and fall away. That can be a great practice. It's just, there's an opportunity to start to open up to the body through the breath. And for some people that can be a lot. It can even make us more anxious. So even sometimes sitting or maybe focusing on the outer points of the body, if it's too much to come in, then maybe it's just a function of feeling the hands, like the thumb against the index finger, and just feel the weight of the hands as they rest on the thighs, just in the simplest way, and just slowly opening up to the body just to see what's here, and just that gradual path might be a good place to start. What about your thoughts on that, Phil?
I totally agree with you. The problem is that we often carry our previous trauma in our bodies. Mm. And so even when we had trauma as a child before language, the trauma is held in our bodies. And that's why it can be very difficult for people to go directly to the place of discomfort. And so, as you say, you need to ground yourself first in neutral areas, feet on the ground, buttocks on the chair, hands, and then slowly come as close as you can to the place of discomfort. And it may be this oscillating movement back and forth. I know diaphragmatic breathing is preferred, but what are the benefits over upper chest breathing? I think this person is relaying to the meditation where you ask them to get maybe into their left chest and their right chest. Mm-hmm. Is it just because more organs are in play?
I find that most of us throughout the day are breathing in our chest. And if we're having a particularly stressful day or the mind is really busy, the breath is going to be really quick and it's going to be shallow. And what I like to do by inviting us to just look at the breath in the chest, it's just a matter of putting our attention there. It wasn't really about necessarily any particular benefit other than growing our attention and focus of sensation of the breath in the chest. Because for some, to breathe deep into the lower belly just isn't available. So what tends to happen is we can feel that breath in the chest easier. And I like to just see if we can get that sense of connection of the whole chest and not just the flow. So it was just a way for me to bring your attention to your breath in maybe a way that you hadn't experienced before, where it's the left and the right, and then it's the sense of whole. So just a different way to approach it.
And for other people, maybe could you just talk briefly, what is diaphragmatic breathing?
Well, when we breathe, like when we, and now I'm caught up in my own breath, but when we think about our breath, and a 3-part breath, when I've taught it in my yoga class, can be an invitation to feel the breath to come in through the nose, an expansion into the lungs. We can feel how the diaphragm supports the breath as the muscle and the movement to help the breath move in and out of the body. But what can happen a lot of times, like I was talking earlier, that tension in the abdomen that we can hold throughout the day, and even just that tension that resides in and around the diaphragm can actually prevent us from breathing fully and deeply into the diaphragm, into that area of the body. So that tension that we hold in the belly, like I can remember when I first started this practice, I just could not get that breath deep into my belly, and it was just stuck here. I could feel it just trapped in my upper body. And so really when we start to soften and bring that awareness and maybe start to open, we can maybe sense that flow a little bit more. But I try not to really make the control of the breath focus, because I think it can be distracting and sometimes it can even cause us more tension. So I like to let the body relax and just see naturally where the breath wants to flow in us. Because we hold so much tension unconsciously already. And if we can just bring some softness to the body, I find that it does ease up for the breath.
And now we come to our last question. And what's really neat about this question is that we come full circle, Christine. What advice do you have for those who prioritize work over listening to our body?
I know. And that was my story. And that was my life for a very long time until my body had enough. And, I would say my best piece of advice is that this is a beautiful place to start. That what we did tonight and coming into the body and starting to listen and seeing where we hold tension and inviting some peace and ease, if that can be found tonight in any way, is the way to start to transform the body. It's about finding that compassion to give ourselves so that ultimately we are able to start to build some resilience again, so that we can take that resilience that we find in our practice and bring it to our work and bring it to our lives and bring it to our relationships. But that healing and that connection has to start with us first.
Yeah. So they talk about emotional intelligence, and then they talk about body intelligence.
Mm-hmm.
And so, we may be doing a job like perhaps you were doing, and on the one hand, it was like, this is what I wanted. But on the other hand, maybe not, it's not exactly what you wanted.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think that at that time, your body was trying to tell you something
Mm-hmm.
that you weren't open to listening to? And how do we get ourselves to listen to the intelligence of our body, not just the sensation, but what it really is telling us about a path we should be following?
I think that the intelligence of the body is always sending us messages. That those messages that my body was sending me, they were there. They were absolutely there. But I continued to make choices that, I knew weren't healthy for me. And the drive that I felt and that continuation to push myself and that deep sense of exhaustion was there, and my body was sending me messages. And when I think back, like my whole world was from my shoulders up. Like I was so disconnected. I mean, you heard my response. I just went into fight mode in the sense of like, I'm just going to be in my head, and that's where I'm going to find that control. And even then, right in the very beginning, I didn't want to hear what my body was saying. I thought I could override it. And it was, and I might have continued to do that had, the CEO of the company at the time wanted to give me that much less of a role. Like I don't know what my path would have been if I would have had that continuous belief that I needed to push through. And when we push past that point of what the body has to say when it has sent us those messages, it's a road to recovery, and it takes time to listen in again. It takes time. And because I was in such a strong cycle of telling myself a story of what I believe myself and my inherent value being tied to my role and how I contribute. And I can't quit. I'm not a quitter. And why can't I do this? I can do this. And yet just stop listening. And I have, that was part of my story. And I wish I could say that I learned that lesson right away, right from the start, but it took me time. It took me a lot of time.
I'll just share one last comment, is because this seems so connected. I was a gastroenterologist for many years, and there's no question that there is a tremendously strong connection between stress and physical symptoms. And even whether or not the patients had functional disease like irritable bowel or organic disease like Crohn's, it was so common to find stress as an underlying cause for what came out physically. And so I think, what we've learned tonight from you is the absolute importance of the body in terms of the messenger, as you call it, for what's happening to us. So Christine, would you like to summarize and share some closing thoughts with the audience about what's really important to take away from tonight?
I would just invite you all to remember the soften and the soothe and allow practice. I mean, that is a great day-to-day practice. And, we all have moments in our day where that practice can serve us so well. And I hope at some point that, maybe the body scan, whether it's with me or someone else, that you're able to incorporate a body scan into your daily practice, even if it's before bed, to help you sleep. I have so many of my students tell me how well they sleep after completing that body scan, at the end of the practice. It's just so great. It's so good for us. So I hope you find those times that you can bring that to yourself, and you can find some space and healing in those practices too.
So Christine, what a wonderful presentation. I think that was one of the best body scans that I have ever heard, and I did not fall asleep which is a real credit to the beauty of your scan. I have to say that. So Christine's talk has been recorded, and it will be posted hopefully within a week on our website, wtm.theproject.org. There'll be the recording on the Zoom talk, and there'll be a recording of the guided meditation on the body scan. So that was wonderful. Again, I just like to, on behalf of the WTM, express our great gratitude to the Calgary Public Library for this wonderful opportunity, and a special thanks to Katie Radke for her tech support this evening. A reminder that on April 15th, Dr. Paula Fairman will be talking about I-Rest meditation for anxiety. And I-Rest is a wonderful technique by Richard Miller that has been demonstrated to be a great value for many types of situations, including PTSD. So on behalf of Christine and myself and the WTM, we would like to thank you so much for joining us this evening. And Katie, I think, has a few final words.
Well, I also wanted to extend thanks to you, Christine, and to you, Philip. What a beautiful way to go into this long weekend and to go into the rest of my evening. It's such a gift to get to sit in on these programs. So thank you so much. Thank you so much to all of our participants this evening for spending your night with us. And I hope to see you next time.
Thank you, everyone. And thank you, Katie, for being the host that holds it all together for all of us to be here, and everyone for showing up tonight. So super grateful to all of you. Thank you.